I feel as though this episode could be summed up in one sentence, a quote from a wise man named Michael Scott. Well, 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 how the turn tables.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther.
And I'm Adrian.
We just watched House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 7, the penultimate episode of the season. Only got one more.
That was some Jurassic Park kind of shit right there, bro.
In that scene where she brings them down to Vermithor, you hear the footsteps first, and then you just slowly see this massive frame take up the entire screen.
Yeah.
It's very intimidating, and we literally just saw him last week.
And that growl, it's like...
Yeah.
Dum, 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 dum.
Whoever's on sound, I hope
That
you guys
person
get
raised.
award. The sound effects for the dragons are really well done. Just very, very well done. Let's talk this through. I honestly wonder, does Rhaenyra actually know the extent to which she is just completely upending the social hierarchy? Because girl...
Like power dynamics have sort of shifted now that you
Yeah.
have given dragons to two people that are, they're not from a noble
Three.
house.
And Adam's not even telling them. So they don't even know that Corlys is
Corlys
his
ain't
dad.
telling them either.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Honestly, if there's any winner in this war, I think it's Myseria. I feel like she has gained a lot for herself, obviously, in terms of the proximity that she has to power, but also she has done a lot to shift the power dynamics and to make other common folk way more relevant to these very, very powerful people, and to make them see that you should be paying attention to them.
Yeah.
That they're not powerless, that they actually have a lot of power and a lot of ability to impact even your life as a king, queen, or whoever. Props to Myseria. I know that people were saying like she's not really for the people because of, you know, some of the things that she was involved with before she was given access to this, but I don't know. I
think she just knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
And her end goal is very similar to with Varys. Like, there were a few people that were like expendable for him, but he was always thinking greater good. This entire episode feel like this was like the change for Rhaenyra, like fully a little bit, that I think a lot of people were waiting for.
I think that part of the problem, and I don't necessarily think this is a problem, but I think that part of what might be coloring people's ideas about like the type of character Rhaenyra is in the show versus the book is I actually think Emma Darcy is just playing Rhaenyra with a little bit more gentleness than people were expecting. Even in this episode, you see that she is crying and very upset about all these people that she brought in to meet Vermithor. That's still ruthlessness. Like, I know that people were like, the Rhaenyra in the books is ruthless and she's gonna do whatever it takes. And this is an example of that. She knew only 2 of those people were going to make it out alive. There was no other outcome, and she did it anyway. I just think that's part of Emma Darcy's way of portraying Rhaenyra, is that even in these acts of ruthlessness, you see a lot of empathy from Rhaenyra, and she feels like a much more sympathetic character than I think people were expecting.
That's a good point that you made, because I actually didn't even think about that at all, but I think you're kind of right. Like, the end result is still ruthlessness, but you're just seeing the conflict through the way Emma Darcy is portraying their character with Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
That you can't really see in the books. It's just like this is what Rhaenyra did. And then the things that she says or how she reacted, that is more up in the air of like, did she laugh in that moment? Did she cry in that moment? Who knows? But the fact remains is impact was X, Y, and Z. I think the showrunners took their time with getting Rhaenyra from point A to point B with where she ends up in the books. Is that I think they wanted to flesh out her motive just a little bit more. I think I understand what they were sort of trying to accomplish with her character. And I think it sort of sheds its light a little bit in the scene where the dragon seeds are trying to tame the dragons there. She doesn't let them leave.
When the guards are blocking them in. Yep.
She must have had some conversation with those guards prior to that happening. And the reason why I think she's okay in making that ruthless decision is twofold. One, I do think she still has resentment for losing her child in season 1, 2 with what happened with Aemond and Lucerys. But I think this time it's not just revenge motivating her. We saw a number of things in this episode. She's referring to very much like destiny and gods and fate and the god's willingness to have this thing happen. And earlier in this season, she feels almost ordained and commissioned to do this, as she sort of said to Jace in the episode with Rhaenys, because Viserys never wavered in her and that prophecy. And I think now it's not just the revenge that's motivating Rhaenyra. I think she feels like ordained to move forward with all of this. And so if you feel like that the gods have like commissioned you to do this task, there isn't really any limits or boundaries that you can do. Exactly. You can't, there's no boundaries you can place on yourself now. Coupling that with the more human emotions like revenge and anger, I think that makes it a little bit of a stronger case. Because I think if it's just revenge, like that could waver a little bit, as we kind of saw in this episode. It's like, who is she going to target her revenge at? Who is Daemon going to target his revenge at? Like, is it going to be at Aegon? Is it going to be at Aemond? Is it going to be at Alicent? With this motive, it's not just at a person, but rather their belief. Their core identity is wrapped up into this prophecy, into this sort of religious fanaticism now, really. And that to me feels even more terrifying than just someone that wants to get their lick back a little bit.
That's a very good point. And I hope they lean into that even more next season. It draws, I think, a needed through line between young Rhaenyra to old Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of ego in that.
Yes.
Like, not a little bit. There's a lot.
A lot.
There's a lot of ego in that. And that was one of the big things about young Rhaenyra that I think made her really compelling, is you could tell she thought very highly of herself, okay?
There's an arrogance to that.
Yeah.
The gods chose me. It's like false messiah sort of complex kicking in here a little bit, you know? I think she kind of learned a lot of that from Viserys. Viserys truly believed it, and Rhaenyra seems to truly believe it, and every decision that they sort of make here is sort of guided by that. It feels like Christianic fundamentalism a little bit. Every sort of cruel decision that you make, you feel like you're ordained by God for that purpose. You place tunnel vision on and you place yourself above everyone else. You kind of see that a little bit. Like even the dragon keepers, they're like, them guys didn't bring them here, like you did.
There's nothing magical going on here.
Yes.
It's nothing. They all have Targaryen blood. Like, I don't know what to tell you. The other thing I really, really liked about this episode, it's kind of like a forced reckoning for all of these very powerful people who have just been reckless in their actions. These are your kids. These are your people. And you decided that they did not matter. And now it's just really coming back to bite them later on. And when you think about it, it's honestly, you have to be so arrogant to know that the ability to ride dragons is genetic.
Right.
And I carry it. And you're just all out here. Like there was so many of them.
Yeah.
Just recklessly having kids. And the thought never even crossed your mind that this could be dangerous.
What makes this interesting too, Hugh Hammer, they revealed something about his character that I actually think is very interesting, because he talks about how his mom was siblings with Daemon and Viserys. King Jaehaerys has a daughter. He had a bunch of kids and he didn't have great relationships with a lot of them, particularly with his daughters. And I can imagine a lot of it is due to perhaps a lot of misogyny that sort of showed up. One of his daughters, I think her name is Rhaenyra Targaryen. She leaves Westeros, kind of makes a name for herself and having like a very like famous brothel, and it's confirmed that Hugh is her son.
Yeah.
Vermithor was King Jaehaerys' dragon.
Okay.
And so now that's like, I just think that this is kind of funny. Like you sort of disowned your daughter and now her bastard son takes your dragon.
So she was a princess. She wasn't a bastard. She was just a straight up
regular
Targaryen
princess.
royalty. And she just left.
Yeah.
Jace, I think, does have something to worry about. And I think he was right. I wish Rhaenyra had done a little bit more in that conversation. This was another thing that I also felt like this, in a way, was also a sort of, maybe not reckoning, but like somebody finally forcing this in her face, because she's been able to avoid this conversation for years now. She's been able to avoid this for years because people were just not pressing the issue. Viserys protected her from it. Time went on and people just are, they're not bringing it up. But I really appreciate that Jace kind of forced her to see the selfishness of her actions and how he is now the one burdened with it. She was able to kind of skirt around the repercussions of her choices with Lord Strong, but he can't because of how he looks.
Right.
Like, she did not think of what that would do, the burden that her sons would have to carry.
Yeah.
For their entire lifetimes because of her choices and the way that she is not really having to carry that burden because her father protected her from it. And it's disappointing that she had nothing really to say to him.
No. And what makes this also kind of sad is that, like, Jace was very angry at the whole idea. Like, he calls the lowborns mongrels. So, yeah, there might be some sort of classism, some bigotry kicking in. But I also think he's just got an identity crisis kicking in right now.
I think he's just afraid.
Yeah.
And I think he also knows that if it was not for class status, he's no different from them.
Exactly.
So he's reaching for ways to differentiate himself, like, you know, calling them mongrels, trying to separate himself from them.
And the fact that he had a dragon.
Yeah, I think for his own sense of self and sense of worth. As the conversation went on, I understood. It's like, oh, you're afraid, number one. You're very scared. And also, again, you're trying to now search for what makes me different from these people then. She had nothing for him.
It didn't really seem like Rhaenyra was trying to fully listen to, like, the fear that he had. To an extent, it does feel like Rhaenyra might be making the same mistakes with Jace that Viserys did with her.
Yeah, she's not prepping him.
Exactly. Because there's a few moments where anytime Rhaenyra listens to Jaceres about anything related to the politics or to the war, it's after Jace had to assert himself against her wishes, going to the twins and getting the Freys on their side. That's kind of similar to, like, earlier in season 1, Rhaenyra goes against Viserys' wishes and she goes to get the dragon egg from Daemon. I don't think she recognizes the similarities in parenting that she's doing with Jace. And I think due to her not prepping him or proactively listening to Jace's thoughts and opinions is what's leading to this eagerness. And also, I think a little bit of, like, questioning himself, which Rhaenyra had suffered a little bit of that in season 1 also.
I think he also knows that because of how he looks, he, no matter what, will have in a sort of uphill battle to earn people's respect when he does become king in the future.
Yes.
And I think he understands that part of that process is I have to prove myself now.
Right.
I have to create, like, a legacy of showing myself worthy of this position, because even though I am the rightful heir, the way that I look is in and of itself going to be a limit. And so I have to start to build up this sort of reputation right now. And she's hindering his ability to do that. So she's talking about Daemon.
Yeah.
I love that little kid. Oscar Tully.
Oscar Tully, an ancestor for Catelyn Stark.
Oh, she's a Tully.
Gagging people runs in the family, it seems.
Yo, he read Daemon for Phils and there was nothing he could do. That is crazy. We sort of see in this episode, like, Daemon sort of he was kind of forced to do it, but he does do it, like, sort of relinquishing control over this situation, because I think he's finally realizing he is not infallible and that he messed up in a very big way that he could not fix. What he did with the Blackwoods and the Brackens, it just did irreversible damage that he cannot fix. And so he had to basically, number one, he had to give up the ability to garner an army for himself, which was the thing that everybody was, like, unsure of what he was doing, and he was not sure either. That was made really clear with the visions. The Blackwood had pledged loyalty to Daemon very specifically by having to
execute him.
Yes. I do think that he feels guilty about that, Daemon. And I also think he recognizes that I'm now cutting off any ties to any ability to make this about me.
Yeah.
Because the people here, Oscar Tully made it very clear, we're not pledging our loyalty to you or pledging our loyalty to Rhaenyra. You just happen to be the representative of hers that is here. He has no ability to do this now. And the vision with Viserys, I think, kind of shows that he was sort of backed into this corner and forced to do it. But I think also, you know, when Viserys asked him that question of like, do you still want this? Like, do you still want the crown? And there's not really an answer from Daemon. I think that also shows that he's also, I think, on some level willingly giving this up.
Yes.
The tides have shifted very fast in this episode.
That boy Aemond ain't want no smoke, bro.
For Rhaenyra, yeah. Because now, what is it? First of all, we already know in the next trailer that they're desperate because Aemond talking to Helena, talking about fly your dragon to war.
Ooh,
so
terrible
we already know they're desperate over there because now what's the count? They have 3 dragons over there.
Who?
On Team Green.
Aemond, Helena, and Darren.
Now, okay, maybe Vhagar counts for like 2. Okay.
Like 2.5.
Okay, so maybe you can probably say like 4. 4 or 5, maybe. But over now on Team Black, it's what?
Wait, whoa. Rhaenyra, Jace, Adam, Ulf, Hugh, Baela, Rhaena,
Daemon.
That's 8. Damn. Real nigga shit. Let's go.
And listen, say what y'all want about Rhaenyra's decision. I do think it is correct that this was a good decision in the short term and bad long term. I think Targaryens will most likely be paying the consequences for this decision for years and years and years to come. It does mess with their whole situation, for sure.
Yeah.
But the immediate effect of it paid off almost right away, okay? I also think it shows their understanding of dragons is like these like near godlike creatures, right? Like that's their understanding, right? And then now they try to take that idea of some like a supernatural spiritual force essentially and attach that to their own self-importance as being wealthy and powerful. And this episode is showing us the dragons don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Sea Smoke goes out and finds Adam. It forces a detachment between Targaryens' own perception of themselves as being chosen by these godlike creatures for their importance or their power. It's something a little different. Now, I mean, it's just the Targaryen blood, so there's still something to it.
Yeah.
But
it takes the classism out of it.
Yes.
That part, I think, is what they struggled with more than the fact that it could be anyone with Targaryen blood.
We know that these people that they're bringing to Dragonstone are bastards of living or very recently passed Targaryens.
Yeah.
So the level of Targaryen blood that they have is much higher than old guy from last episode that they brought in.
Oh,
that had like just a trickle.
The Kingsguard.
Because they're trying to go through lineages and find out.
Yeah.
So
his great uncle's wife's twice removed.
You know, like so clearly the thing that was bothering it, because what he said was, you know, well, that guy was a lord. That guy was like important. He was one of your Queen's Guard, so that makes it better. But in actuality, he has less claim because he has less Targaryen blood than these people who are probably the least that they could be is a quarter Targaryen. Clearly, you guys think it's about status, and the dragons are letting you know it's not. No, it's not.
That's a very good point. I think you hit the nail on the coffin last week when you were talking about Aemond regretting how he spoke to Larys.
Oh, that guy's plotting on you.
Yeah, because he's the one that tells Ironclad, like, maybe don't tell him. And you know that was because of how he spoke to him. Like, if you had named him hand or at least turned him down a little bit more gently, maybe he don't respond like that.
No, he is plotting.
I also feel like Aemond made Larys feel that like his back was against the wall. Like, oh, if I don't find a way to stay relevant, I might get nicked. Yeah. And so now there's a sense of urgency and almost a little bit of desperation here. Like he's trying to quickly get Aegon to heal because if I can get with Aegon, then I can still live. And I don't think that urgency is there if Aemond just treats him a little bit better. And if Aemond treats him a little bit better, maybe they could be a little bit more prepared with what Rhaenyra was trying to do. Because I would also say that maybe Larys was even hip to when Alan pulled up and was pulling all those people into those boats. on their way back to Dragonstone.
I was thinking about that because they weren't being quiet about it.
Not that much.
They were mighty loud in that pub.
Yeah, and Daemon owns the gold cloak, so it wouldn't be that hard for Larys to find out.
No, he has his little whisperers.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I got a little scared. I was like, don't do too much because Aemond would round y'all up.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you all so much for tuning in again. We'd love to see what you all thought about this episode. Let us know in the comments below. And also, we'd love if you could like this video, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell so that you are aware of when we post new videos. But with that, we will see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Peace.